Hi there. This is what day is this? It's the 23rd of March, 2021. I think it's Tuesday. Um, I bought some readers last night. I just the distance between me and the screen is totally blurry, but if I hold something close, I think I got too strong a reader. Today is I think I'm better off without them. Today is the election in Israel. Remembering the 2016, I think Obama was very involved in trying to block. My understanding is that won't state it as fact, can't prove it, because I don't have the proof. But we had heard that Obama had tried to oust Netanyahu. He did not succeed. They do think that he will be able to get a majority in the way their politics works, because they have so many different parties, that he'll be able to get a majority. But there's a little they think he should be able to, but there's still some questions. So be praying about who God wants to lead their country in that regard. I don't know if they're only voting for Netanyahu's position because this is not their normal election time. Because Rabbi Yehuda Glick is running to be president, whereas Netanyahu's running to be prime minister. So there's a difference in power structure there. But I'll tell you, some things happening around the world are amazing. Australia's floods have caused some huge issues in Southeast Australia. And I understand there's even some flooding in Northwest, but not where my friend is. The issue has been the flooding has caused homes to be invaded by mice and rats and spiders. Snakes are up in the trees and falling from the trees. So the animals who have been able to get out of the floods are becoming a major danger, not only nuisance, but danger to the human population. So pray for Australia. I mentioned the rats and mice yesterday, but today they're talking about, I heard talk about snakes and spiders as well. So they're in trouble. Our border crisis. I heard somebody say this morning that there's an expectation that Mexico is to deal with it, not us. Did you see Project Veritas last night? He was able to get somebody secretly took pictures and were able to get them to James O'Keefe. And so he did a program on it. There is a Texan politician who went down to Donna, Texas, and was able to get, one or two photographs. The situation's really bad. They've got 7 to 17-year-olds in the cages together. They are covered up with those foil emergency blankets is what it looked like they had. It looked like that was all they had. A lot of them were on the cement floor. Now, we have to remember, folks, we have to think about what life is like in their home country versus what we expect life to be like for us here. And although we are all, as human beings, entitled to common courtesy, these are illegals. They do not deserve, in my opinion, anything better than a prisoner of America would get. When you've got overcrowding, you've got a serious issue. They are spending $86 million to house them in hotels. That means $380 per night per person. It's going to cost $72,000 per person over a 6-month period. These hotels are going to rake in a killing if the money only goes to the hotels. On the other hand, you can imagine the condition of the hotels when they leave. I mean, when my folks took in refugees into their home, I had left home, so I was not a participant, but I did visit and meet them. When they arrived from Southeast Asia, they didn't know what a toilet was. They had never seen hot water. They'd never seen a faucet. They didn't know what to do. They wanted to wash everything with cold water and their dirty hands that they had just wiped themselves with. Um, they knew how to squat. They didn't know how. So, to know whether to use the shower or the toilet, they didn't understand. They had to be taught everything. So when you've got people coming from a third world country that are still living without houses and so on, they don't understand our ways. The middle class around the world may understand, but the poor do not. And so we need to be careful about what we expect their services to be. And if you are going to be more protective of them than you are our homeless veterans, and there's over 70,000 homeless veterans, what would Larry say about this mess, Linda? That's what I'm talking about. He's fought, he helped overthrow Pol Pot in Cambodia. And Cambodians were the ones that came and stayed with my parents and other people at their church. He fought in Nicaragua. He was in the jungle, living off the jungle, took no food in. He had to take ammo in his backpack. We don't know how many of these young people and children were kidnapped. The boys, they've got boys 7 years old in these cages or whatever, with a fence around them, with 17-year-olds. I heard a report of the you can imagine what's being done sexually to the little ones by the older ones. If they are gang members, there's going to be initiation issues. I'm not minimizing the horror of what is going on, but we have to remember I know what Larry would say. What part of illegal do you not understand when it comes to legality? If they are illegally crossing the border, then they are criminals. I know for a fact Larry has said that. So that for sure is what he would say. And if they are, now I'm going back to my opinion, if they are here illegally, if they are criminals, they deserve nothing better than what our own criminals get. And I was discussing by text with a friend who knows somebody who's in federal prison. And the conditions that she was describing made me cry. And we have discussed this by text. I haven't talked to her in person. We discussed it off and on by text over the weekend. So, besides losing a family member on Friday and what's going on in my friend's family, I mean, I had reason to grieve this weekend without even considering, my own personal stress or the stress of other friends and what I'm helping them through. So there are times when experiencing grief, we're not to be anxious. We have to be trusting the Lord. I do say, Lord, you are in charge, and I thank you that you know about this situation. When I think of the photograph that I saw 2 weeks ago, I can't get that photograph out of my mind. And I spent some time this morning saying, Lord, you understand you've allowed this for a reason. And I know there is going to be reward in heaven for what is being endured. But it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. And while praise is so important and an attitude of gratitude is so important, I do say, God, I praise you for your holiness. I praise you for your justice. I praise you that you know what's going on. I thank you for all of that. And I honor you as Lord of all. But it is hard to see some of what we're seeing. And we know that as we reach closer and closer to the end of days, what we are going to find out is going to become more and more heinous. And when the heinous behavior touches our own family members, it's one thing to see it happen to a stranger. You've got a wall of separation between you and them. But when it happens to family, it can be quite overwhelming. I'm a little confused. God says that we're to be discerning of the false prophets. We need to be careful. That's why we're talking about being watchful, because discernment, being watchful and alert, it is very closely aligned to having discernment. And, I have heard people say, America shall be saved. Dutch Sheets says that. And yet there's a pastor, I think his name's Robbie, and I can't remember who he is. He has a black beard that's got a little bit of white in the bottom now. He interviews Mario Murillo quite often, and he said he recently had a message from the Lord that America will not survive. You had Ken Hagin back in 73. I think it was 73. I heard just a little bit ago. That America would not be communist. And you've got David Wilkerson and even Perry Stone talking about horrendous things coming, particularly to the East Coast in New York. And I'm sorry, I don't know if you noticed the red on my hand. It's marker from writing Fragile on some of my boxes. It's not blood. Don't worry about it. We have to be able to discern. And there are times when the Lord, just like with Israel, just like with Jonah and Nineveh, Nineveh's going to be destroyed. And then God gave them 40 more years because they repented. Where has been our repentance? I thank God for what is happening through Mario Murillo and his crusades in California. The number of people who have come forward and asked to be saved has increased with each one he has had this year, dramatically increased. Sean Foyt and what he's doing in his rallies around the country. The Lord is moving. The Lord is moving. And we have to remember 2 Chronicles 7:14, that God has a promise to heal, but people have got to be seeking his face and turning from their wicked ways. And when we have churches that are embracing the ways of the world and accepting them, the church becoming like the world is not what it's supposed to be. We are to encourage the world to become like the church. And I know there are people who are angry at the judgmental attitude and the pride that I'm right and you're wrong attitude that was prevalent for so many decades. It's a bad thing. And I confess that was something that I had trouble with. Boy, I sure got taken down a peg. All right. Look, I got called Mary growing up because people couldn't pronounce the other names. So don't worry about it. Christy Nome. I heard on the news today that they're thinking about her to run for 2024. She has done such wonderful things by keeping the state open. She has voted. She has signed the law the legislators passed to consider abortion because of Down syndrome as eugenics, and they have outlawed that, and she signed that bill. But when they said they wanted to outlaw transgenders being part of women's sports, she refused to sign that and sent it back to the legislation to change it. She said she would sign it if they would allow transgenders to be in women's sports at the college level. even if they don't allow it at the high school and elementary level. Who's getting to her with money and pressure? We need to be praying for our legislators, because I cannot imagine the pressure that she was the only one holding out, keeping her state open. And of course, now Ron DeSantis has joined her, but he's a little later to the game. I just heard this morning that Texas legislation, Texas Senator Brian Hughes. Again, it's SB. Ours was, I think, SB 6, the abortion bill. Theirs is SB 8. Write that down, folks. SB 8. Senate Bill, SB Senate Bill 8. It is a heartbeat bill. If you live in Texas, make sure you contact Senator Brian Hughes. Make sure you contact your senator. Make sure you contact your state representative in Texas. Those of us who live outside the state can also call Senator Hughes' office and remind him that Jason Rapert had a bill and had a petition that was signed nationally that got 86,000 signatures to encourage the governor to sign our no abortion law. He also has Senate Bill 12, which is dealing with censorship and free speech. So I encourage all of us to contact Senator Brian Hughes, and I think that's Brian with a Y. Now, his phone number, I was going to put that down in the description below, and I didn't get to the computer in time to do that before it was time to turn on the program. Let me get the hyphen in there. Okay, here is his phone number, 512-463-0101. It's 17 minutes after the hour. That is the time I posted it in the chat, in case you're listening later. 512-463-0101. That's Senator Hughes in Texas with Senate Bill SB 8, the heartbeat bill. Ohio has passed a heartbeat bill. I think Iowa and Oklahoma. I don't remember if Oklahoma's got signed. They had one. Iowa as well as Ohio have done that. The shooting in Boulder. More and more people are coming out talking about 10 people having died. I saw a video last night, shortly after the shooting, of somebody with their cell phone camera talking about it, walking past bodies. There was no blood anywhere. There were people on the ground. There was an old man standing in the doorway of the store on his cell phone. He wasn't fleeing. He was just standing in the doorway. The policeman, the sheriff that first talked to the reporters, had no sheriff's badge, no star on his chest. He had one star on his right collar point, no star on his left collar point. That just seems fishy. And the comment was made that there are going to be many, many, many false flags because they are trying to get people scared so that they can take the guns, because they'll be scared that people will misuse their guns. Do you realize how many of these people may have been given their guns by the government? I don't know. I'm questioning. I'm asking a question. I am not making a supposition. I'm not trying to be conspiratorial. I'm just saying, what is the possibility? Were people really killed? I don't know. We're not there. They don't want to show the gore if it's true. We just know there's an awful lot of deception going on, and we need to look at People who do such things are deeply disturbed, even if they are paid to do something. Yeah, I saw that, Susan, standing in the doorway, unfazed, playing with the phone. So what's the truth here? We know they want to... Stalin proved that if you frighten the people, you can get them to do whatever you want them to do. This is part of their push to take over the country with communism. China can't come in and take over as long as we have guns. So they're trying to get people afraid of people with guns. But the one thing we know is the criminals will always have access. And if they take it from the good people, then the criminals win. Books to go out. I have a stack with names on of the last ones that are available that were asked for before I got sick. So that those requests came in around Thanksgiving. My phone was out of commission. I just got the battery. I had 400 text messages. Over the weekend, I got it down to 300, and I'm back up at 400, and I don't know what these all are. I'm a little overwhelmed by trying to go through this and trying to figure out who and what. I got the books out from, where I had them set aside, and I pulled them out. I'm going to go through them, see if I can find the phone numbers with the names. I probably have 100 from phone numbers and no name with it, because they're not in my contact list yet. So you guys are going to have to really be patient with me, and please don't request a book if you haven't already. If you already did, tell me what day you requested it, and let's see if we can go from there. I know most people haven't paid, so I heard something incredible today. Jensen Franklin, a message by Jensen Franklin on prayer. And I had talked about the importance based on Ezekiel, and I can't remember if it was Ezekiel 8 or what chapter it was. Sorry, I've had some shoulder pain since the hospital stay because of the way I was laying in the bed, and it hasn't gone away. I'm showing you again my map of DC, and I will take my finger and trace around the Capitol, and I will trace around the White House, and so on. And God told Ezekiel to draw a map in the ground and walk around it. Well, we know that sometimes we can't walk around things. Sorry, I swallowed the wrong way. You can put a map like this on the floor and you can walk around it. What Jensen Franklin was suggesting was that as the people walked around Jericho, that was basically a prayer enlisting the Lord's, even though they were in silence. God told them to do it. That was their obedience to God. And the fact that they were doing a circle, he said, gave the power for the walls to come down in obedience to what God told them to do. He told the story, which I thought sounded a little strange at first until he got more into it. He told the story about a wise man before Christ, that the people were going through drought and they had gone to their wise man to ask him to pray. And he had gone, didn't say who this person was, either that or I missed it. He had drawn a circle and gone into the circle and said, God, I'm not leaving this circle until you send rain. And the rain came immediately. And so Jensen Franklin was suggesting that we find a way to put our family, our local communities, our state, our country into a circle that we are, like I have done with this map and taking my finger and tracing around it. we need to, draw a circle and put a picture in, or somehow he's indicating that there is some significance to the circle. Well, it's just like Ezekiel and Jericho, march around the city. They were told to do that. And so Jensen Franklin is suggesting we do this. Now, it a little concerned me about the circle thing because of the stone circles that the Native Americans would build to go in. It was part of their rite of passage for a young man to become an adult, or a boy to become an adult. But Satan copies everything. So is this a biblical concept that Satan has copied? But the fact that Jericho and Ezekiel were told to do this is a biblical principle that we need to be following for what we care about and who we care about. So that's the end of that part of this program. Getting back to, we're going to start now going through what the Apostle Paul says about being watchful. In Acts 9, it talks about watching at verse 24, but I'm going to start at verse 22 and read through 25. Saul kept increasing in strength and confounding Jews who lived in Damascus. So he has gone up to Damascus in Syria. He's proving that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah. When many days had elapsed, the Jews plotted together to do away with him because they didn't like his message. They didn't believe it. But their plot became known to Saul. Now, remember, they were expecting a conquering king, and Jesus came the first time as a lamb. And they didn't recognize him. And so anybody talking about Jesus being the Messiah, they were very angry about. So they had a plot to do away with him. They were planning to kill him. They were close, but there were people who were these Jews were closely watching the gates day and night, so they might put him to death when he comes through the gates. But his disciples heard about this, and they took him at night and let him down through an opening in the wall and lowered him in a basket, and he was able to escape and get out of Damascus. So the Jews were watching, but the disciples were alert and listening. Okay, remember when I read the verse in Nahum yesterday, except it's right here under my computer. It said, no, it was Habakkuk. Habakkuk 2, verse 1. I will stand, I will watch to see what he will say to me. So he's going to see what he says. So the connection between eyes and ears, seeing and listening. So the Jews here in Damascus were watching with their eyes, but the report came to the disciples. So he was able to be saved. His life was spared. So in Acts 20, verse 31, this is in Acts 20, talks about Paul's farewell speech to the leaders of the Ephesian church. He says, watch. In other words, be on your guard, be careful, be alert. And remember that by the space of 3 years, I never stopped warning everyone day and night with tears. So he's warning them about persecution because he's seen it coming, and he had participated in it before he came to Christ. He is warning them about eternity, that they need to be on God's side or they will condemn themselves to hell. So these are the warnings he had given them. So he says, be on your guard, be careful, be alert, watch. These are from the different ways of translating that verse. Again, in 1 Corinthians 16:13, he's talking to the church at Corinth. He says, watch or be on your guard, stand fast in the faith, quit you like men, or in other words, be men of courage and be strong. And we know that although they had a very, I got a brain freeze, paternalistic society. They reported how many men were someplace, and rarely did they talk about the women or the children. And so he's saying, quit you like men, be strong, be a man. It's sad to hear people saying, where are the men these days, the whole concept of feminism and how it's coming back around, and the liberal women who want equality and want this and that, and now we've got transgenderism and putting men in with women's sports, and then we go back to the men dominating again. The whole thing is just, it's just odd. It's just odd. I mentioned Ephesians 6:18 yesterday. I'm going to repeat it again. Praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. It takes perseverance to hang in there and be on your guard. And as these days are getting more and more dangerous and you have to be on your guard all the time, it's exhausting. It is exhausting. But we've got to buck up. When I think of Larry's will to live, the way he could mind over matter to get through the pain he was in, and he would tough it out. Now, he was on a lot of strong pain medication because of what he'd been through, the number of broken bones, the number of gunshot wounds, the poisonings, the list of everything he'd been through, as it talked about in the book, the nerve pain that he endured with urticaria, for whatever reason that had come into his body, whether that was Agent Orange related or not, I have no idea. And I have to be careful about what I speculate, because I've been told I didn't know him. So in the New American Standard, it says, with every prayer and request, pray at all times in the Spirit. With this in view, be alert with all perseverance and every request for the saints. In Colossians 4:2, Paul said, devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful, or alert and discerning, and also be thankful. 1 Thessalonians 5:6 says, therefore, let us not sleep as other people are doing. That just reminds me of Proverbs, what talks about the sloth turning on his bed and not getting up and getting to work. People who tend to have really pushed themselves and worked hard, who tend to be workaholics, when illness or something lays them low, they deal with a lot of guilt when they don't have the energy they used to have. I have to say that's something that I wrestle with right now. But there are times when sleep is very necessary, because your body and your mind, you can be physically, emotionally, or spiritually exhausted. And there are times when you need to let yourself rest, spiritually rest, physically rest, emotionally, mentally rest, depending on what you're going through. And we have to listen to what our body needs and take care of ourselves. So this business of do not sleep, on the other hand, we can't be slothful and lazy. We need to watch and be sober, or be alert and sober, as it says in New American. 2 Timothy 4:5, watch in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, do your duty in ministry. Hebrews 13:17, obey your leaders and submit to them, for they keep watch over your souls as those who will give an account. So the fact that they are leaders, they have a higher sense of responsibility. They're going to give an account for what they do. If they are good leaders, remember it says in Romans 13 that if they are godly leaders appointed by God, you are to obey them. If they have gained their authority illegally, as we have seen recently, you do not need to obey. Let's see. Obey your leaders and submit so they may do this with joy, not groaning. And so, when people cooperate with what you're saying needs to be done, that's important. But I'll tell you, I think about this stuff and this stuff. And the fact that we know if you continually are breathing in carbon dioxide, breathing back in what you have exhaled that needs to stay out of your body, and you breathe it back in, you're going to increase your risk for pneumonia, increase your risk for illness. The things that we are hearing about, from people like Dr. Tenpenny, from Dr. Bosch, who used to work with the Gates Foundation, Judy Mikovits, Dr. Made from Georgia. Who's that? The American frontline doctors, and the things that they are saying, we versus what the governors are pushing. We need to be careful and alert. These decisions are ours, but if they have consequences that cannot be undone, we need to be wary. Wary is another word for being, cautious and being alert, paying attention. 1 Peter 4:7 says, "The end of all things is at hand. Therefore be sober, be vigilant," or watch. Be vigilant, watch, and pray. Revelation 3:2 and 3, "Be watchful, be constantly alert. Strengthen the things that remain, which were about to die. For I have not found your works complete in the sight of God. Remember, therefore, what you have received and heard. Hold fast, keep to it, repent. If you're not watching, if you're not alert, I'll come as a thief, and you will not know what hour I will come to you." And then Revelation 16:15, "I come as a thief. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is the one who watches and is alert." So that's the end of the scripture that we had on watching. So, I'm watching the weather to just figure out what I'm going to do the next couple days. Because I don't know for sure, I'm going to take off the rest of this week because of weather issues and some things I need to do. I've got to go to the doctor tomorrow. I've got to get my car into the shop. So I've got some things in my personal life that I have got to attend to, and that is going to interfere timing-wise. And I'm going to have a couple days to get some things in order. So I'm going to say be blessed for the rest of this week, and I will be back with you next Monday. And I have to make that decision at this point. I will not be going to the funeral of the person who died last Friday, the family member who died. I just can't make that kind of a trip. But that funeral isn't going to, I think they're going to do like my dad's with a memorial service. And because that's not going to be until the second weekend in April, or it's the 7th of April, whatever day of the week that is. So I will be back Monday. So I will go in right now and put as title that I'll be back on Monday. Please call Senator Hughes in Texas. Again, his phone number is 512-463-0101, and voice your support for the heartbeat bill in Texas. And let's be praying that will pass. Pray for Australia, for the people who are suffering from all these. I mean, we know how many, they've got so many deadly snakes and, the critters there, and the number of mice and rats and rodents that they've got coming into the house is really, the amount of death and stuff from the dead ones, the stench is really getting bad, I hear. So pray for them to endure, and that repentance will turn this plague away from them. Be in prayer for the border and the people who are dealing with this. There are some dire situations in other countries. These countries need to figure out ways to support their own people. Please don't think of me as harsh, folks. Please don't think of me as harsh. I care. I grew up on the mission field. I care. I really do. But this is to accept people illegally who have not come in through legal means is frustrating to those who came in legally and had to wait and wait and wait and see others just being given. I mean, this is communism, to just give it to people who have not earned it through coming in the right way. And it reminds me of the money being given to the blue states and cities that allowed their places to be destroyed by their own ruling, and now get paid to make up for what they lost because of what they did to themselves. It's I have friends who live here and work here and send money back to their homeland. I get it. I get it. And it's hard, and they need to find a job wherever they can find one. I get that. I'm just not going to say anymore because I'm not a policymaker. I don't have a suggestion for what needs to happen. But what's happening right now, we know is not right. And it is not America's responsibility to fix every single problem in the world. It is not our responsibility to think that the rich have to make us an equal to them. Many of them earned what they have. Many of them did not. Many of them inherited it. Many of them inherited it because their parents worked hard and saved and therefore left something. Many work hard and then their kids spend it all. I've had some discussions with people with the difference between the wealthy versus even the middle class and how differently they raise their children and what they teach their children, not to disrespect people who don't have, but their whole attitude and outlook on life is very different. I had a friend who came from a wealthy, they were wealthy in Europe, and they went to Brazil and had a girl living with them, and they left money for her to go to school while they went back to their home country for a vacation. And when they came back, she had spent all of the money on stuff, and they were really upset and let her go. Because they had a different concept on how to get ahead in life. She wanted stuff to feel like she could show people that she had something, whereas they were trying to think of her future so she could earn it and acquire it little by little as they had done. So the border situation is serious, and we need to be in prayer for wisdom. We need to be in prayer for protection of ourselves as they are distributed all over. So many of them are military-aged men. Many of them are gang members. Many of them are criminals. They open the jails to get rid of them so other countries don't have to pour their money into feeding jailbirds. But like Larry said over and over again, what part of illegal do you not understand when you talk about illegal aliens who are coming across our border illegally? They are sneaking across. They are not coming through the legal means. What part of that not being a criminal act do you not understand? So with that, I'm done for today. I will be back on Monday. Thank you for being here. God bless you. God bless you. Let's just keep praying. God is in charge. And I thank God that He promises all things will work together for good to those who love him. Talk to you Monday. Bye-bye.